Okay, so you know how sometimes during Q&A you get those questions that just kind of throw you off?
Totally. Yeah, you think you're prepared, and then bam, curveball.
Right. Like, where did that even come from? So we're taking a deep dive today into some material all about handling Q&A with confidence.
Hmm.
It's specifically from week 3, handling Q&A with confidence. And it's got some really interesting stuff about not just having the answers,
Right.
but really mastering those moments when you get a question that you weren't expecting or that's super complex.
It's about owning the response.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And one of the things that jumped out at me right away was this idea of structuring your responses effectively.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's something that we all kind of know in theory, but when
Yeah.
you're actually in the moment and you get that question that you're not sure about,
Yeah.
how do you even start to put that structure in place?
Well, I think that's where it becomes so important. Like a structure is kind of your anchor,
Mm.
right? It's an anchor for you. It's an anchor for the person asking the question.
Mhm.
So even if you're still formulating the complete answer in your head, if you can start by directly responding to the question,
Okay,
maybe offering a couple of supporting points and then sort of briefly summarizing,
got it.
it just gives this immediate sense of direction and composure.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, and it prevents you from rambling. It
Mm.
ensures clarity. It's super helpful.
Yeah, it's like you're giving yourself a mini outline on the fly.
Exactly.
So, okay, let's talk about those truly unexpected questions.
The ones that really throw you off.
Yes, because obviously staying calm is important, but there's this whole idea in here about recognizing and rephrasing unclear questions,
Yes.
which I think is so interesting. But how do you do that in a way that doesn't sound like you're just trying to dodge the question?
Right. Well, I think the key here is that a lot of times a question that feels difficult is actually just vague.
Mm-hmm.
So rephrasing isn't it about stalling for time.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about making sure that you're understanding the core of what's being asked. So for instance, let's say someone asks, what about the recent issues with whatever it is?
Right, vague.
You could say something like, to make sure I'm addressing your specific concern. Are you referring to X or Y?
Okay.
So you're essentially guiding them to clarify their intent.
And you're buying yourself a little time to think.
Exactly.
Cool. So then what about those questions that are legitimately difficult,
Right.
where you maybe don't have the complete answer right at your fingertips?
Well, I think the big picture strategy here is to remember it's not about knowing everything, it's about being strategic.
Okay.
So go back to that point about staying calm, take a breath,
Mm-hmm.
and then try to structure your answer concisely around what you do know.
Okay.
And then if there are limitations or areas where you need more information, acknowledge that.
Be upfront.
Exactly. It's much better to say, that's something we're still exploring, but what I can tell you is
Yeah, honesty. I like it.
that builds trust.
Yeah.
It manages expectations, and it shows that you're being transparent.
So transparency is really key there. Okay, this is all super helpful. I love it.
Good.
And then the last thing that I wanted to touch on, because it's mentioned in these notes, is this whole idea of practicing spontaneous responses, which sounds kind of counterintuitive.
It does, right.
Because how do you practice for the unknown?
Yeah, well, the point isn't really to try to predict every single question.
Okay,
It's more about building your agility in responding to anything.
I see.
So maybe try doing some mock Q&A sessions with colleagues.
Okay,
Even on general topics, it doesn't have to be specific to your work.
sure.
The goal is to get comfortable with that pressure of thinking on your feet and structuring your thoughts quickly.
So it's like a mental rehearsal.
Exactly.
Okay, so it sounds like the big takeaways here are to use structure to organize your responses, even when you're feeling put on the spot. Don't be afraid to rephrase questions to make sure you're understanding them correctly.
Yes.
Be honest about what you know and don't know. And then practice those spontaneous responses to build confidence.
Exactly. It's about shifting your approach from reactive to proactive so that you feel equipped to handle whatever comes your way.
I love that. Okay, so think back to a time when you were in a Q&A and you felt completely caught off guard.
Oh, yeah, we've all been there.
What's one technique from today's deep dive that you could have used differently in that moment? Was it using a clear structure, rephrasing a confusing question, just taking a breath and staying calm? How can these strategies help you to feel more in control no matter what questions come your way? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely my pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.
See you then.
Bye.